So, welcome to the webinar on AWS Architect Certifications. So, my name is Krish. I'll be your speaker for this webinar. So, just to give you an introduction about my profile team, I've been working as a in the IT for the last 18 plus years, and I've been working in cloud from 2010 onwards. And I've been a consultant and enterprise cloud architect for a lot of companies worldwide. I basically support the companies to migrate to cloud platform, and basically I support them to design and manage the proper cloud strategy and cloud solutions. I am also a trainer that I do training for AWS, Azure, and various other cloud technologies and cloud security architecture. That's about my profile team. For more information, you can visit my LinkedIn profile. So let's start now, team. So today, the first thing we are going to discuss is about what exactly is the key cloud certification. Just want to give you an introduction about what is a cloud certifications. Then what all things you have to learn before you go to a cloud certification. Like that's a question that I always get from many participants, that what all things or what all key requirements we must be able to have before we start with the cloud computing, and what all certifications are there specifically with AWS, and what is the importance and how we can basically learn the AWS architect certifications, or in fact what exactly is like being an architect. Like there is a that's a common question which you always have to keep in mind when being an architect. What is our job role, or what kind of job is being an architect? That is something which we will learn, and then I will tell you how to update or how to get updated in the various uh, you know changing scenarios and all. That's what we are going to discuss in this session. So first of all, team, there is something called as a cloud certifications. So there is a first thing which I tell in almost every batches I am taking. The first thing is that, team, do you really need a cloud certification? Like for example, there are many people that tell me that, so Krish, I want to get a career in AWS, or I want to get a career in Azure, or I want to get a career in GCP, or cloud computing, or cloud architecture, cloud security. So do we need to really go for a cloud certification? That is something which most people ask me on that. So team, there are two things. So one is skills, and the second one is assurance. There is two words. One word is basically what we call as a skill, and the second word is a assurance. So like for example, first thing is that for you to basically work in a cloud computing platform, or basically if you want to work in some technologies, certification doesn't matter. First and the most important point which we have to understand is that for working in a company, or basically for implementing a cloud technology strategy, or for implementing a cloud architecture, you don't need to have a certification. So there what primarily matters is your skills actually. So whenever you're going for any training or any kind of learning pathway for a particular technology, always focus on this first one. Always focus on your skill, and that is the first thing. And in fact, there is a lot of people asking, so Krish, I'm already having some 5 years experience in a cloud platform, or I'm having some serious amount of experience in my cloud platform, so do I have to get a certification? And the first thing I tell everyone in that is the team, the skill is the primary thing which matters. The skill is the primary thing. Like in the sense means what skills? That is what we are going to discuss in the session. So primarily, team, the skill is the something which basically matters to us. And the second thing is what we call as a assurance. Okay, now let's assume that you are coming to my company for an interview, or let's say for example, you are basically telling the client that you can implement something, or basically you're actually mean going to a company where they need a cloud architect. How do the company have an assurance that you have the proper skills? Why do I take this ISO 27001, etc.? Like for example, for my organization, why do you basically go for the ISO 27001 or NIST certifications, etc. team? I can work without this also, right? Do we really, is it mandatory for every security company or every company to have this certification, team? How will you provide the assurance? See, I am telling you, don't worry team, my data center is completely certified for the ISO 27001. Don't worry, you can do the transaction on my website. I am completely capable of providing you a security for the transactions. But as a client, how do they have an assurance over that? That assurance, like for example, if you basically go to a website which is PCI DSS certified, or let's say if you have a HIPAA certified, you have a baseline guarantee, you have a at least a minimum level of assurance that they are capable of providing that particular security mechanisms, and they have proved it. Okay, the same thing, the ditto, the same thing is what I always talk about the certifications. So the first and the primary thing, as I told you before, is never think about the certification. First is always your skills. I will tell you how to develop a proper cloud skill and how to basically optimize it. And the second thing is that you can basically get certifications, but basically I'm a person who basically don't uh, prefer people to have hundreds of certifications or basically go for thousands of certifications and all. It's basically something to just prove your skills. So you may asking Krish, so Krish, why do you hold a lot of certifications? See, the same thing I told you, because I'm also doing the training as well. So I want to show my clients that I am certified on it. That's how they are able to get an assurance before they come to me. Like the same way, if you have a certification, it basically provides an entrance. It provides a primary baseline assurance for the employers or for your company or for your clients that regarding your skills. Okay, but that is the only thing, that is the end of it. That doesn't mean that certification is always required after that. It's just to start, it's just to have an initial identification, right? So that is the first thing, team. So whenever you're studying for any cloud courses, the primary thing you must focus is on your skill part. And cloud offers a lot of certification. When you go to a cloud computing scenarios, there is a lot of certifications. For example, we have something called as a vendor specific certification. Like there is a lot of cloud providers in the market, right? We have a AWS, we have a Azure, we have a GCP, we have a Oracle, IBM, Alibaba, DigitalOcean. We have a lot of cloud vendors in the market. So all these cloud vendors, almost every common cloud vendors are providing some kind of certifications. So in AWS, you have almost 12 certifications. In Azure, you have hundreds of certifications. In GCP also, you have a lot of certifications. So every cloud service providers nowadays are providing a lot of certifications. This is the case of a vendor neutral vendor specific certifications. Like whatever you learn, let's say for example, if you basically go for AWS certification, that means that you are learning things specifically to AWS. If you go for an Azure certification, you are learning things specifically to Azure. If you're going for a GCP, you are learning specifically to the Google Cloud Platform. Like the same way, there is something called as a vendor neutral certifications also. Like there are many certifications in the market which is talking about the cloud in a generic manner. They are not biasing to any cloud service provider. They are talking about the various cloud platforms, the cloud governance aspects, and a lot of things like that. In fact, I have done multiple webinars on this. You can just refer to the YouTube on that. What I want to tell you is that, team. So the first and the primary thing which you have to keep in mind before you go to a cloud certification is that this is my recommendation, team. You can just understand this very clearly. So I'm talking about a baseline. Like if you want to start in a cloud platform, what is the skills you need? I'm never talking about the specific things for each certification. I'm talking about what are the key skills before you move to a cloud platform and in what level you need it. And first and foremost, I always tell everyone, whether if you are a developer or a tester or an operations person or a Linux person or a Windows guy or anything like that, the first thing is that, team, you must have a fundamentals of networking knowledge. This is basically very important, team. So fundamental networking knowledge is very important. That is always most important for any people who start with the cloud computing, because in the cloud we are accessing everything via network. Like for example, let's say now if I'm going to AWS or now if I'm going to Azure or GCP or any cloud platform, you're accessing everything via network. So you must understand the fundamentals. Like for example, you must be always familiar with the concepts like protocols, then fire means the network devices like firewalls, routers, switches. Just the concepts is fine. So you must exactly know what a particular firewall will do. You must know what is the role of a router. You must know what is the role of a switch. That is something which is very important. The common protocols, the common port numbers, IP addressing, then the concepts like DNS, DHCP, etc. These kind of fundamentals are basically very important for a person like VPN. So it's very important to have a fundamental baseline level of knowledge for any person to start with the cloud computing. It's a primary thing, first and the primary thing. Okay, this is a mandate thing. Like, in fact, I have seen that even if you're a developer, so Krish, I am a developer, I'm doing the development process. So why do I have to learn this? If you don't learn all these things, then how can you basically connect to a remote server? Then how can you basically think about the access control mechanisms, or how can you think about the various how do I know how to push my code to the cloud platform? For all these things, this is a very important thing to have a fundamental networking knowledge. Then the second most important thing which you must have is the team. You must have a very decent knowledge of security. Okay, so there is a very important thing called as IT security, or basically, cyber security fundamentals is also very important. So Krish, is it really important to us? So team, when you basically go to any company some few years back, like for example, let's say if you are a person who is working in any organization some 10 years back, it is not mandatory that you have to be aware of cybersecurity, or you have to be aware of the information security architecture, because end of the day you're not much concerned about security. But now everybody is using smart devices, everything is basically on internet, every data is basically on your internet. So in that time, what happens, team? You must understand that this is a unavoidable most important area or of expertise which you need. That is basically what we call as a cyber security fundamentals. In fact, I have seen that, like, you can check the internet, like, there is a news that now there is a huge amount of openings there. The US and other countries are now trying to fill up a huge amount of opening for the security, information security jobs. The reason is because that is something which is always most important to us. For example, let's say you're a developer. What happens if you don't know the common vulnerabilities or threats in your application? You are a operations expert, or let's say you are a network expert. What happens if you're not aware of the network security challenges? Let's say if you are a person who is working in an operating system, what happens if you don't know how to harden the operating system? Like this, for every aspects, for learning it, cybersecurity fundamentals means security fundamentals is a key thing. This is a mandate skill. I will say that this is a mandate skill for each and every person. That's the first thing. Then the third one is the team. It is very important for you to basically know some OS fundamentals, like, OS, like we can say server administration fundamentals. So I'm not saying that you have to mastering, again, I'm not saying that you have to go mastering on this, but still it is very important to have a knowledge on basic things like this: identity management, active directory, the various kind of Windows server concepts, Linux concepts. So these kind of concepts are good to learn. Like, I'm not saying it is mandatory for you to come to my session or basically go to any training session, but before you start with a career in cloud, or if you want to basically be a successful person after getting this cloud certifications, these are some skills which the company will ask you to get for. Okay. Then in the fourth one is basically always, it's about, again, the fundamental knowledge in programming and scripting. So in fact, you can basically find a lot of people in the internet who say the same thing also. You need to have a foundation knowledge in programming and scripting. So Krish, because of that reason, I'm not coming to cloud, I'm going to some other certification, because if I go to cloud and if there is a programming or scripting knowledge required, I'm not good in it. I'm not happy with it. So let me go for something else. See, team, the reason why you are basically feeling the same is because you are trying to be a programmer. See, my first point is that, team, what is our job? You're going to be working in cloud, or maybe you're going to be working in a particular aspect of cloud. In that perspective, okay, you don't have to learn the complete programming or complete, like for example, you don't have to be master in Java, or you don't have to be master in PHP, or you don't have to be master in uh, Python, you don't have to be master in JSON. But at the same time, you need to have a fundamental knowledge. In the sense means, let me tell you. See, as an enterprise cloud architect, I'm an enterprise cloud architect who basically support the companies to transition to cloud platform and basically design and solutions for them and all. So the primary thing which I always feel is that, in fact, in my job also, what I feel is that, team, there is a lot of scenarios every day I face where I have to see some script, I have to see some, key, some script, or some, we can say, some programming languages and all. But what I always do is that, team, I never learn it completely, because this is not my primary job. What I will do is that team, for doing this, what I will do is that, as I told you in all my previous sessions, I learned the structure. Okay, I learned the structure of that language. Like for example, let's say for JSON, okay, we open a curly bracket, close a curly bracket, we have a comma after this, we have a section like action after this. So I just learned the very high level structure of the thing. And basically what happens, we have a lot of developers, or we have a lot of code in the internet which is already predefined there. So I take the code, I know how to customize it. Okay, so learning the structure is basically a very good thing, just to know the fundamental structure of that programming language, especially Python or JSON. These are two things which I always prefer, Python and JSON. These are basically very good to learn if you want to go to a cloud computing. So Krish, I'm going to networking. So if you go to networking or cloud or security or anything like that, even software testing or anything like that, this will be there. Okay, so Krish, I'm trying to learn Excel. I will learn Microsoft Excel. So there is no programming. There also you have a programming there. So wherever you go, these things are always there for you. So what you have to do is the team, just learn the structure. It will take hardly an hour for you to learn just the structure of that language. Then use something called as a top-down approach. What is top-down approach? Top-down approach means the team, you don't learn the code from the scratch. You take a code and you basically try to disintegrate the code, or basically you try to dissect the code. That is what we call as a top-down approach. For example, let's say if I give you a code, I don't want you to write it by yourself. I want you to basically understand how to customize the code, or I want you to understand what if I make some changes, how do I basically work on it. So these are the fundamental skills which is basically required for you to basically start with the cloud computing. It is mandatory. Like I have seen many people tell you this is not required, or this is not required, or this is not required. So what I am saying is that team, these are all mandatory for you to learn. I'm not saying it's required for learning. If you want to work in cloud computing, these things will basically come at least means a week. Every week you will face any of these things in the, but also just learn the very high level things of it. And last but not least, I wanted to add this because for the last 2 years, I felt in every job they're asking basic understanding of DevOps, Agile, etc. These are basically very important. So Krish, DevOps is basically a lot of tools. Never. So you have to understand why DevOps is basically very important. What is the software development lifecycle? If you have this understanding, like what is Agile, if you have the understanding of these all things also, this will basically satisfy every requirements you're having. This is completely optional, but I have seen in now in every jobs I'm seeing this. For example, let's say now you go to organization. So Agile makes things more dynamic. As you said, Agile makes things more dynamic. Like for example, from the point we are getting the customer requirements of a customer to develop the project, to deploy the project, I can basically make it a more easy and flexible process. I can basically make sure that all my team members, like developers, testers, operations, management, every team members or every project teams work together in an effective manner to deliver a project. Right now, for many reasons, companies go for this agile model, and we use different things like Scrum, etc. Anyway, for implementing the agile model and to make sure that the agile is basically working as expected, there is a strategy, there is a culture, there is a movement we have in the company called as a DevOps, which stands for development and operations. Basically, it's a process on how to basically ensure that the code is properly passed or code is properly deployed and all these things. Means I'm not discussing about this in much team, but just I'm telling you. So if you have a very basic understanding of DevOps also, it's really good. These are some key skills which is required for you if you want to start with the cloud computing. This is my recommendation, team. Okay, this is a very important thing which you must have if you want to start with cloud computing. Perfect. Now team, the next one is that now the next thing is that, as I told you, that we have a lot of cloud providers who is there, and now the top vendor in the market is always AWS, right? Definitely, I'm not saying AWS is the best provider. We have a lot of providers and you choose the best one purely based on your business requirements. So what is the role of or why AWS is basically a very good provider for the cloud platform? Because the reason is that now AWS provides very effective and sophisticated solutions for meeting almost every customer requirements. and they are the one who started the cloud in 2006. It is basically started, and what happens, all the other cloud service providers have started after AWS. So now Amazon Web Services or AWS is the top vendor for the from the 2006 onwards till now. AWS is the top vendor in the public cloud platform. Okay, and basically, even if we have other vendors also, they always remain there for, they always keep their first position. So in AWS also, in Azure also, in GCP also, it is not designed for a single kind of person or a single type of company. So because of that reason, like for example, I'm getting this question always, like when I teach my AWS certification trainings, okay, like I teach for AWS certification trainings also. When I basically go for teaching my AWS certification, the first thing that people ask me is that, okay, the first thing that people ask me is that, so Krish, uh, do we have to learn everything in AWS? That's a common question I'm getting. Like in AWS, you can see a lot of a lot of what we can say, see lot of services here. See, I can show you an example. You can see that in AWS we have a lot of services. The same is there for Azure also. So do we have to learn all these services, or do we have to basically master all these things? You can find a lot of service in AWS, in Azure, in GCP, every cloud platform. So the first point is that these are something which are required for different companies or different purposes. So you have to learn the most common services and their uses. That is a basic thing. And AWS provides you different pathway for doing it. Okay, AWS basically provide you many tools or many different pathways for doing it, starting from the foundation certification to the architect certification to the specialty certifications. They provide you with a lot of certifications for various purposes. I will just give you an understanding about what all things are doing in this certification, then I will focus on the architect part of it. So there is the first certification we have called as a AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner. This is the most simple and foundation level certification in AWS. Okay, we have a certification called as a AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner. So I'm not saying it as per the AWS website. I'm saying it in my aspect. Like for example, now I always tell that, let's say even if you are a manager, you must be a technical person nowadays. Correct me if I'm wrong, team. Like for example, if you are a manager who is managing a team of cloud professionals, or you're a manager who is basically driving the security strategy, or you are a manager who is driving the whole cloud and AWS, Azure, etc. So is it required for the manager to understand the cloud platform, team? Yes. See, let me tell you a point on this, team. See, there's a word. Okay, now let's say that there's a person who is just studied the MBA, or who is basically from a different background. He is from a pure management background. But at the same time, see, a manager is basically leading the team of professionals. So we have a person one here, we have a person two here. All these people are basically working as a part of his team, and the manager is basically reporting to the business. So basically what happens, so the business is having something called as a business requirements, and the manager is the one who basically coordinates all these things, right? Like ensure the projects are happening properly and things are working. This is my simple doubt, that you're a manager who is basically working in a business, and you are working in a cloud project. If you don't understand the cloud lingo, if you don't understand that cloud language, like I'm talking about shared responsibility model, I'm talking about SLA and contracts, I'm talking about IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. If I don't understand their language, what my team is talking about, then how do I guide them? How do I basically support them in some hassles when they are facing some bottlenecks or challenges? How do I guide them? Also, like for example, you are talking to your client regarding something, and if you don't know what is your client requirement, so Krish, for understanding client requirement, we have a technical person. But yes, but you must ensure that that is basically aligned as per the business requirements, right? So nowadays, what I see in my whole experience, in my whole means wherever I see in my company's team, if the management person is also having some technical know-how or just a high level understanding, I'm not saying he's someone who is going to sit tomorrow and do the configurations, or he is something who is working on all the cloud solutions, but just a very high level knowledge on all these things can help and change the strategy a lot more. See, I'll give an example, team. Now let's assume that I'm heading a project, okay, where I'm having some people who is under me. In my previous company, I was actually having some 25 people who is basically working under me on various things. So I came from the technical background, or basically I have a basic technical background on that. Just because of that reason, I was able to understand many concerns they were having, and I was able to, just push them to that particular process easily. So my recommendation is that team, like, if like you can just check the internet nowadays, or basically you can check the companies nowadays. If a management person is having some aware, or that manager guy is basically having some high level awareness of some security, or basically the cloud, or whatever he is working on, it can make the job much more easier. Like to understand the way we talk, to understand the way to respond to the queries, to understand the way to basically in the meetings, like, he can basically become a very good proxy for routing the queries for all these things. Anyway, I'm just trying to give you a heads up, team. But what I just plan to say is that if you are a person who want to learn in a very high level what is cloud computing, or what is AWS, or basically what are the key services offered, if you're basically a person who want to learn all these things, then this is the best certification you can go for. So Krish, I am not working in cloud platform, or I don't want to basically be a part of the part of the technical stuff in the cloud platform. But if you just want to learn the cloud, what is cloud computing, how it works, what is shared responsibility model, what is a well architected framework, what is the key service in the cloud platform and all, you can go for something called as a AWS certified cloud practitioner. So this is basically in Azure, we have something called as AZ 900, the same thing, Azure fundamentals. In AWS, we have something called as a AWS certified cloud practitioner. It's a foundation certification. So I very strongly recommend this, just in case if you're a person who just want to have a very high level knowledge of cloud computing platform, just go for this foundation level certification. Either go for this one or the Azure AZ 900. Okay, this will give you a very high level thing. This is not going much in practical. We have some practicals, but it's more about the concepts and understanding of the various cloud solutions. Okay, that is what we call as a foundation level certification, called as a cloud practitioner. Then we have something called as a team associate level certifications. So this is basically a very interesting thing. There is something called as a cloud associate level certifications. What do you mean by associate level? That means that you want to start with the cloud journey. You are a developer, or you are a engineer, or a operations guy, or you want to become an architect, or if you want to start with any of the cloud roles or cloud technical roles, this is the point where we start. This is the point where we start. And AWS offers three track in this. One is the AWS certified solutions architect associate, which most people know because this is the most taken certification in AWS. Then we have something called as the AWS developer associate. Then we have something called as a AWS sysops administrator associate. Yes, that's what I'm telling, Mohammed. So if you are a person who basically want to start with cloud computing and you want to go to the technical stuff on that, then start with this particular associate level. That's the first thing I say. Like you're a person who is new to cloud computing platform, and if you want to start with the cloud, then go for this associate level certificate. That's the first thing to go for. So what is the difference between these three? So I will tell you, the first one and the last one is almost similar. The difference is that in the first one, last one, this is more about the operations perspective, and this is basically more about the design perspective. So end of the day, you are studying almost the same services. What I feel is that approximately 90 to 95% topics are basically same if you go for these two things. The topics are almost same, but maybe the perspective of the questions are different. That's all. Except that basically for both of them, you feel almost the things are very same. And this is basically for developers. Like for example, what are the key services that a developer has to learn in the cloud computing platform? In fact, that is one very important point I won't tell you if there are some developers here. So this is also a question which is very common. So Krish, I'm a developer. I know Java, I know .NET, I know Python, I know JSON, I know ASP.NET, and I know everything. Then why do I have to learn cloud computing platform? So my answer for that is, team, if you are a developer who already know about okay, you who already know about the what we can say uh, programming languages and database and all, But if you are developing a solution for the cloud platform, if you are a person who is you are working in a company where cloud is basically so prevalent, and basically if you don't understand the benefits of cloud platform or the risk of cloud platform, then how can you basically utilize it? For example, let's say in cloud we have something called as a PaaS platform, where what we can do, we can basically just simply put the code and the cloud will do the rest. You can basically have IaaS platform, you have a SaaS kind of services, you have a lot of risk and challenges in the cloud platform. So as a developer, it's 100% important for him to understand the cloud computing, the cloud development strategies, the key cloud solutions to make his job easier to deploy things in cloud. For all these things, this can basically help a lot. So, in my personal experience, what I have seen is that team, either if you are a developer or a operations person or architect person, this is something which basically helps you to understand, grab to any job role to start with. This is a really good thing. So here we are not learning any programming. Here we are not learning any kind of programming or scripting. Certain specific services we are learning a little bit more. That's the only difference. So my personal recommendation is the team, when you are going for associate level certification, either if you want to be a cloud engineer or cloud associate or basically cloud architect or maybe a developer or whatever it is, this is something which is basically very good to start. Much better than this, these things I feel, which is a very good starting point if you go for the AWS cloud platform, the AWS Solutions Architect Associate. And don't worry, we will discuss about this. We will just discuss about this in more detail. Let me just discuss two more things and I'll come back to this. Then we have something called as a professional level. In fact, I will say one of the very challenging, the most challenging AWS certification is what we call as a AWS professional certifications. The reason is because when you basically go for a AWS certification, okay, and when you go for a professional certification, trust me, you will never find even a single question which will give you any straightforward approach. They will give you a very complex scenarios, complex architectural scenarios. In every question in these exams will give you very complex architectural scenarios and challenges, and they will ask you how do we respond to it, or what is the best practice, how can we fix this, like that. Okay, so this is basically what there is a certificate called as AWS Architect Professional. So what do you mean by this? Whatever things you have studied in the AWS Certified Solutions Architect Associate, the same things you are learning in much more a deeper perspective when you go for this AWS Architect Professional certification. That's the only difference. So there is no much difference. Whatever things you are learning in the AWS Associate level certification, that is what we are learning in a more deeper perspective in the AWS professional level certification. Okay, but it's very tough to pass because basically what happens is that you need to be mastering every services and every details on the service you're learning if you want to basically become a AWS architect professional. Then we have something called as a DevOps engineer professional. So this is a very common thing. So DevOps means you're always thinking about a lot of tools, right? Like Docker, Kubernetes, Jenkins, Chef, Puppet. You have a lot of tools which we basically work with, right? When you go for the something called as a AWS DevOps engineer professional, you are learning how to implement DevOps in the cloud. That is what we are learning. If you go for the AWS DevOps engineer certification, it's a very unique certification which I gave some 1 year back, means a few months back. So this certification is basically, completely focusing on how do you properly implement the whole DevOps in the cloud platform. For example, so normally we have a tool called as Git. What is the Git? It's a tool for version control. The same, it's tool for storing the data, code and all, right? The same tool in AWS, we have something called as a code commit. Example, like the same way, we have different tools in AWS, which is basically where we can implement the DevOps. This is what we call as a professional level certifications in AWS. I'll come to this architect professional again, team, just to give you an idea. Then we have something called as a specialty. So when you say specialty certifications, specialty is, I have seen very many people confuse you in the LinkedIn and all, saying that these are very tough. But I will say that this is basically much more flexible and easier because they are focusing on only one aspect. Like for example, if you go for security, they are thinking about security only. In every question you are getting, in every scenario you are working on, you are thinking about security. If you go for the AWS certified security specialty. If you go for this certification, they are purely talking in the perspective of database only. So these are specializations where which allows you to basically, get more details or understand more details based on your job role. Like for example, I normally conduct trainings on this AWS security specialty where everybody is concerned about that, because what happens, you know how to implement things on AWS, but once you know how to implement things on AWS, how do you know that whatever you have done is properly secure, or how do you ensure the security of your cloud platform? And that is what you learn in the AWS certified security specialty. Like this, we have many certifications in AWS for various purposes. So today I'm going to focus on something called as a AWS certified solutions architect, associate, and professional. This is what I want to focus on today. AWS certified architect, associate, and architect professional. So before I start with this team, I want to tell you the meaning of this word, solution architect. Okay, that's a really interesting word, right? Solutions architect or solution architect. See, this is not so clear to most people. When you say solution architect, there are two words we have, solution and architect, right? We have a two words. We have a solution and we have an architect. What do you mean by solution, team? See, when you say the word solution, solution is a architecture or a plan or an idea or a suggestion you basically put in place to meet your business or client requirements. Okay, you have a requirement. You are basically trying to figure out a proper plan or design or idea or architecture or suggestion for a particular scenario which is happening. That is what we call as a solution. And the architect is the person who basically designs it, right? So when solution architect means that, team, you are actually designing the solutions for various scenarios. Okay, that is the first thing. So when talking about solution, the first thing is that, see, the person called as a solutions architect is a cloud computing expert. I repeat the word, he's a cloud computing expert who can design the solution, who can plan the solution, who can ensure the solution is basically meeting all the business requirements and all these things. So Krish, what is the main thing? Are we simply suggesting the solutions? Or when you become a solution architect, are you trying to simply suggest the solutions? Not exactly like that, team. How do you, like, for example, let's say, what is the primary concern? Or do we have a primary concern when talking about designing a solution, team? Brand value. See, you tell me a lot of things, right? Like the same way, when talking about cloud solutions, these are the key factors which we have to keep in mind while designing a solution. Definitely security matters. We all know security matters, right? What is security? Security means that, okay, like for example, when talking to the cloud platform, how do I ensure the user management, user security, data security, proper security controls? How do I ensure the CIA confidentiality, integrity, availability? That's a security. Then there is a word called as reliability. So the cloud is going to cloud. Tomorrow you say cloud is risky, we'll go back to on-premises. Again, after some time, you will plan to do something else. That is not something the company can work on, right? The company want to have a proper, reliable solution. That means that, like, even if something happens, we must have a proper BCDR plan. Then we must have a proper, distributed model for designing the systems. We must have a proper recovery scenarios. We must be able to have a dynamic environment where we can adapt to the changes. Then talking about performance. Performance is very important, right? How do I basically choose the proper performance requirements, or how do I identify my performance challenges? How do I monitor my performance? How do I maintain the efficiency for my business? That is what we call as a performance efficiency. What is operational excellence? Like for example, when some changes are happening, how do I respond to the changes? How do I basically automate the change management process? How do I basically manage the events? How do I tackle the proper compliance requirements? That is the operational excellence. And cost, cost is a very important factor in cloud platform. How do I properly manage my budgets? How do I select the proper services and make sure they are inside my budget? I'll give an example, team. Now let's suppose that, so in AWS, we have a solution called as a AWS Shield. Okay, AWS Shield. The AWS Shield is something where it is a DDoS protection. Okay, the approximate cost of this particular security solution is 3,000 US dollars. per month. Okay, the approximate cost is that it can be 3,000 US dollars, 3,000 US dollars per month. A company is there who is basically having a monthly turnover of 6,000 US dollars. Can they basically use the solution team? What do you feel? Can they go for the solution? Why? Because see, I want DDoS protection. Then this is the only thing which I am having. Then why? What will I do? See, definitely first point is that whenever talking about a solution, the solution must be able to meet our requirements. Plus, the solution must be feasible, and there must be a proper cost benefit analysis. That means that the company's profit is 6,000 US dollars, and if you have to spend 50% only for a particular solution like this, it is never possible for the organization, right? So they want to have the protection of D4 DDoS, but this is not feasible for them. So this is something which I cannot think of for a company like this. So what I will do, I will use some other solution, like I'll go for something like AWS WAF, or maybe some third-party tools. But end of the day, I want to implement this for sure. I want to implement the proper protection there, but I need to make sure that solution is also within the cost which we can manage, which is basically as a part of my, which is basically something which is feasible inside my business. So I just want to buy a car without any reason. Okay, shall I'm by simply having 10 lakh rupees with me, can I go for a Ferrari? No, right? It's all about my requirements and how much I am ready to spend. And there is one more pillar which they have added now called a sustainability pillar. See, team, do you know that when you basically have a data center and all, which is this is something which most people are least concerned about, sustainability. We always hear about greenhouse, this melting of the Antarctica, and a lot of things like that, right? And we just watch that news and we just forget it. Do you know that the IT information technology, or basically the IT companies, or basically the enterprise businesses, are a, a very much serious threat they are causing to the environment. Like for example, every companies are having data centers, they are having massive amount of servers, they're having massive infrastructure. It can produce a lot of problems to the environment, right? Why? Because they are basically, you can just search it. It's basically, it's giving a lot of impact. But at the same time, when you go to a cloud computing platform, it needs, or it eliminates your need of deploying your own data center, right? And by choosing the proper cloud solutions and utilizing your solutions effectively, you can basically help the environment also very much. Okay. So by minimizing the environmental impact by running cloud workloads and choosing the proper cloud solution sizes and maximizing the utilization of each of the things you're having, what happens? It can help us to have a proper sustainability. Like this, if you want to become a solution architect, all these six characteristics, all these six factors, you must be keep in mind when choosing a cloud solution. Just think about how complicated it is. So Krish, I want to buy a mobile phone. Can I say, okay, you go for iPhone, you go for Android? No, right? Like the same way, you're telling me, so Krish, I want to deploy my server and cloud platform. Can I say go to AWS EC2 or go to Azure VM? Never. It's about, first of all, I have to understand your requirements, then think in each of these perspective. I have to think about security, I have to think about reliability, I have to think about this, I have to think about this. Everything I have to think about, and then only I can suggest a solution. This is why becoming an AWS solution or cloud solutions architect is a very complicated thing. Okay, this is why we need very complicated solutions for doing it. So for this team, I'm just giving you some examples on this. That is why what I'm saying is that whenever you go cloud platform, there is one of the key job roles we are having is what we call as a cloud architect. And as I told you before, these skills are mandatory before you start with the cloud platform. Like, don't tell me, Sukresh, in the YouTube or somebody told me this not required for their job. But trust me, team, these things are at least minimal level of required in almost every jobs you specify. So please make sure this prerequisites you are able to meet. If you have some queries like, so Krish, how do I learn this? Or do we have any, or how do I start with this? Or how do I learn this? Let me know. I will help you with that team. I'll tell you where to start or how to start. No problem. So this is the key job role when you're basically learning something called as a AWS Solutions Architect. And that is what I am trying to teach you in this whole two things, the AWS Certified Solutions Architect Associate and the AWS Certified Solutions Architect Professional. So as I told you, these are not two different things. When you basically go for this thing, whatever things you're learning in this particular course, you're learning in a much more detailed perspective if you go for AWS Architect Professional. Okay, I want to give you a high level idea on the certifications, and then we'll basically plan for the rest. I'm now going to the AWS website to show you something. So here team, this is the AWS website, and you can see all the certifications here. I'm just opening the first one called as a AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate. So now, as I told you before, I mean in the previous webinars and all, this certification is now expiring, and they are planning to have a new exam version on the exam name is same, but the exam code and the contents are different from August 29. Okay, now from August 30, they are having a new version of this exam called as a SAA C03. Okay, so first of all, let me tell you what is this. So if you, this is something which I say that if you want to basically start with the AWS cloud platform, and if you want to master the AWS cloud platform, this is the one which we have to start with, the AWS Certified Solutions Architect Associate. So Krish, I want to basically learn how to become an architect, or basically I want to learn how I can, or to get a job in cloud computing, or to get a job in AWS cloud platform. Then this is the best thing to start with, the AWS Certified Solutions Architect Associate. And the biggest challenge that most people understand is that if you want to learn this, this needs a lot of things you have to learn. See this team, you have to learn a lot of, this is the exam guide, just I'm sharing this for your reference. This is something which basically needs, they have divided the whole course into 4 domains. One is designing the secure architecture, design a resilient architecture, design high performance architecture, design cost optimized architecture. So they have divided the whole course into 4 domains: design secure architecture, design resilient architecture, design high performance architecture, and design cost optimized architecture. So in this course team, you are basically having multiple things now, like you are having a lot of things you have to learn. And out of this, they have given two words. They have given two words. One is basically knowledge of and skills in. Okay, knowledge and skills. So what is the difference between knowledge and skill team? So what, when you say knowledge, okay, knowledge means that it is basically an understand. This is talking about the understanding. Okay, like becoming familiar with something, or becoming a familiar with the facts or the theoretical concepts is what we call as a knowledge. You must have a deeper understanding of these concepts. These are all concepts. Okay, and this is something you must know how to implement in real time. So don't forget, like don't confuse with the difference. When you say knowledge of, it means that it is something about your way of understanding something, or it is your way of basically getting some understanding, or like how we can basically or what is this concept, or how this particular concept can be applied. That is basically what we call as a knowledge, the theoretical part. And more, it's a like this is something which is mandatory for every person. And how to do that in real time, how to implement it in AWS, or basically how to do it in real time, or basically how to apply the knowledge is what we call as a skill. Okay, applying this knowledge is what we call as a skill. So they have now divided every module into this ways: knowledge of and skills in. And you can see that they have introduced a lot of services. See, if you scroll down, you can see that they have introduced a lot of services. And people ask me, so Krish, do we have to learn everything? Let's say in compute, you have all these services. Not exactly. You have to learn in detail about this one, this one, this one, and rest you must have an understanding of these things. Like just having a knowledge of the other things are fine. So in every topic, when talking about storage or compute or containers, etc., in every topic, you must know the skills. You must know the implementation part of certain particular topics, and the other topics you must know how to do that, or just the knowledge of the things are very important. For example, let's say now let's assume that there is something called as a database. I know that you don't have to work in database all. So if you basically know some one or two database, how to implement that, plus rest of the things, if you are aware of it, that will do the job. Got a team? So this is a very important certification, which basically, they want you to basically understand and learn about a lot of topics and lot of concepts. This is a very important thing. And after these particular things are over, there is something called as a AWS Architect Professional. It is also going to change in November, but as of now, we are using the existing curriculum team. In this particular thing called as AWS Architect Professional, this is something which is basically needs a serious amount of cloud skills, because whatever things you have learned in the AWS Architect Associate, you are learning in much more detail in the AWS Architect Professional. To give you an idea on that, first of all, we have a domain called as a AWS Organizational Complexity, right? What do you mean by organizational complexity? Like for example, let's say now we have an organization. Now your company is a very small company, it's fine. But when your company is basically growing, okay, when your company is basically growing, how do you basically build a proper, like, how do I use multiple cloud accounts together? How do I basically bring a complex multi-account strategy? How do I design policies for my business? How do I manage the multiple accounts in a centralized manner? How do I manage my cost for multiple accounts? That is what we learn in the design of for organization complexity domain. It's talking about when your organization is becoming more complex, when you have more, your organization is growing, how do you manage the solution? Then design for new solution. What do you mean design for new solution? Like for example, now companies want to basically have something called as a infrastructure as a code, or the companies want to have something where you are able to basically get new solutions as per the business requirements. Like it must be able to have a proper high availability, it must be having a proper scalability, it must be having a proper multi region deployments. Like the same way, how do you design new solutions for your business? That is what we call as a second one called as design new solution. Then we have something called as a migration planning. So Krish, migration is very easy. In fact, I have also felt the same thing, but still, trust me, migration is not so easy. When you see you're doing a migration, there is a different ways of doing it: rehost, replatform, lift and shift. There is a lot of things you are having in the migration. So, what are the key factors we have to understand to ensure my business can run without any trouble when I'm doing a migration process? And how do I perform a simple migration? And all these things you must be able to have an understanding if you go for the migration planning. And of course, the cost management domain, you are aware of it, because if you're talking about cost management, as I told you before, how do I set the budget? How do I set the proper cost management? How do I see where is my cost and how the cost is changing? That is what we domain 4, cost control. And domain 5 is all about continuous improvement. That means that, like, for example, how do you basically optimize your existing solutions? That is what we call as continuous improvement. How do I optimize my existing solutions? Like this team, we have a total of 5 domains in these two things. Okay. So first of all, if you want to start with the cloud computing platform, and if you want to master these things, team, definitely you need to learn a lot of things before and after learning the certification training. Before that, I told you this is what you have to learn before you go to any cloud certification trainings. These fundamentals you have to learn. These are all fundamentals you have to learn before you go for any cloud certification trainings. First thing. And in the training, you whatever you're learning, team, this is what you're learning in a training. Like as I told you before, I'll show you can see, get the curriculum in the website, and that is what you learn in the reading, means this course part. And after the course is over, after you learn something by yourself, or maybe from from training centers or from me, wherever it is, once you learn something, after that there is something called as a post learning things. That means that, like for example, based on your existing job role and your existing skills, you have to learn some additional things. I'm not saying in the part of cloud platform, maybe based on what kind of job role you're looking for, what location you are from, you have to learn some extra things. So if you basically follow a proper approach for all these things, team, your learning strategy can be much more easier. And just for information, if you want to write this exam for AWS Architect Associate, the exam cost is now 150 US dollars. Okay, 150 US dollars plus tax will come must according to the country, and you can write this exam from your home or office or any Pearson VUE centers. That's it. And all the exams, all the AWS exams now contain scenario-based questions. That means that they will give you a complete scenario and they want you to basically provide a proper best solution for that. In fact, I will tell you one more thing. When going for the exam, okay, there is some advantage we are having if you go for this exam. First thing is that this exam allows you to basically mark the questions for review. Like for example, now let's say we have a 65 questions in the exam, okay, and we have a total of 130 minutes. So basically what happens, this 65 questions, you have enough time to basically see the all means answer all the questions. But just in case, if you feel some questions are very lengthy, or if you feel some questions are very lengthy and all it's more complicated, you can just simply mark it for review. So what happens, only once if you mark it for review, and once you finish all the rest of the questions, they will show you all the questions which you have marked for review that you can answer later. But anyway, totally you have to answer the 65 questions for passing the examination. The same for AWS professional also team, you have 180 minutes, but the cost is $300 plus tax will come. Okay, that's it. So team, these are about the ideas about the exam part. And as I told you before, never think about the exam, always primary think about the skills you want to get, and then you can basically think about the examination perspectives. See, basically in InfosecTrain, I'm providing multiple trainings. One is basically the AWS Advanced Architecting combo. So it basically covers these two certifications called as a AWS Certified Architect Associate and Architect Professional. But as I told you before, I'm not covering it in a certification perspective. First of all, you can basically write the exam. It's fine. You can practice person and you can write the exam. But the thing is that the primary goal of this training is to give you a deeper understanding of how to real-time architect something. That is the first thing. Okay, so basically what happens in this training, I'm not covering it from the starting associate then professional. I'm combining it together and giving you from the scratch to the advanced architecting. I'm giving it to you as a series. And the fees and all these things, you can basically get in touch with me or basically any salesperson in InfosecTrain, and you will be they will share you all the fees, the structure, and all these things for this training. I'm just sharing my number here just in case if you need some doubts or if you want to talk to me on something, just message me on Telegram or WhatsApp, and we can fix the time and we'll have a call. Okay, that's it. So now team, this training is basically the training is basically of 50 hours. Okay, total 50 hours training is there, and basically the course which is currently planned is basically on 22nd August. We have a batch coming on 22nd August, and it will finish on 19th September. It's a weekday batch actually, because weekends it's already having the AWS security batches running. So I'm running this batch on the AWS weekdays actually. It's on evenings, like from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. IST. I'm having a course called as AWS Combo where I'm talking about the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate and AWS Certified Security Specialty. There's a batch already started. The next batch is only on September. Perfect, because that batch is actually already full, and basically we are have the next batch. It's a lengthy batch, so it almost like 60 hours it will take. So it's a lengthy batch. That's why we are running it. I mean every 2 weeks, 2 months actually. That's it.